Welcome to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast of the Illinois Air National Guard at Scott Air Force Base. I'm your host, Technical Sergeant Brian Ellison. The Roll Call podcast focused on people, mission, and community. Want to say hello to our deployed folks. Thanks for listening. Holy cow. It has been a heck of, a week and a half with getting ready for the large-scale readiness exercise we just had over the weekend. I was on the wing inspection team, and I got my second Moderna shot last week. That was crazy. I got it on Monday. Felt fine all day Monday. I thought, I'm going to sleep on Monday, and I'm not going to have any side effects, because some people have said barely had any side effects. I woke up in the middle of the night with the worst chills that I can remember ever having. Barely got any sleep that night. Woke up exhausted. Went to work with the help of Aleve, ibuprofen, and caffeine. Just got through the day. That night, I woke up with the worst night sweats that I can remember ever having in that, too. And my body was not liking the Moderna shot. I mean, it's better, trust me, it's better than having the COVID, than having the Rona, as the kids say. But, it's a tough shot, but it's all for the good of everybody. I knew my body wasn't liking it. My resting heart rate at night was 66 when it's usually around 54. So that tells me that my body is either getting ready to get sick or it's not resting well. But by Friday morning, I felt right as rain. My resting heart rate went down to 50. I think it was 50 on Friday morning when I woke up, which is pretty, makes me excited to see my heart rate that low. Probably because I hadn't ridden my bike in a week, because I just couldn't I was just so exhausted over that time. Amongst all that we did, a few live broadcasts last week as well on Facebook and Zoom, and we were getting ready for that LRE, which I hope you're recovering from the exercise. In the meantime, according to the Air Force News Service, physical fitness assessments will now resume for airmen on July 1st. When assessments resume, the 3-component fitness tests, obviously the run, the push-ups, and sit-ups, will be reset with scores calculated on a new 3-component scoring table. In addition, work is underway to separate scoring into 5-year age groups as opposed to the previous 10. For example, age groups will start at less than 25 to 29 years old, 30 to 34 years old, et cetera, et cetera. There are ongoing studies and reviews to determine a list of alternative strength and cardio components for the physical fitness assessment. Some alternative options being explored for the current components include the 20-meter high aerobic multi-shuttle run, the row ergometry, planks, burpees, and other alternatives. Unless they include a biking one, I'm going to stick with the mile-and-a-half run. Future PT test updates will be released as they are available. Today, we're going to hear from the commander of the 906th Air Refueling Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Kurt Wampole, right after this.
I'm Tech Sergeant Scoggins in the 126th Air National Guard Air Refueling Wing, and I'm an aerospace maintenance technician, a crew chief. So our job entails mostly, on a good day, inspections. We get the jet ready to leave, and then we catch it when it comes back. So we interact with the pilots there, and then if they have any issues, they tell us. We have to do an inspection pre and post flight to find any discrepancies, and if it's something we can fix on the spot, we do.
I'm Lieutenant Pippins, AMXS, Aircraft Maintenance, and I am the Aircraft Maintenance Officer. I am a supervisor of all the crew chiefs, so all the men and women that work hard every day out on the line to make sure that the 9 aircraft that we have here at Scott are ready to fly for the pilots. And I just make sure that they have everything that they need so that they can meet that mission every day.
One of the biggest benefits from working with the 126 would definitely be traveling. I've got to go to a lot of cool places for free to me. We get to go to Europe a lot. We're state partners with Poland, so we get Poland at least once or twice a year. It's nice. If you are in the unit, I recommend picking up that trip.
Thanks to joining the Guard, I've been able to get my bachelor's in kinesiology from the University of Illinois, and then I got my doctor of physical therapy from Southwest Baptist University. So I'm a doctor of physical therapy on the civilian side. I work as an outpatient physical therapist. They're both completely different jobs, but completely rewarding. I work one-on-one mostly in my civilian career field, and then here I'm in charge of 50 people. So it's a much larger scale, but they're both provided me so much experience.
Hi, we are the 126 recruiting team. I'm Master Sergeant Heather Wilde, recruiting flight chief.
I'm Technical Sergeant Richard Olson, production recruiter. To learn more about career training with the 126, give us a call at 618-222-5701.
But wait, there's more. Give us a call in the next 5 minutes and you could qualify for 4 years of free college tuition.
We're joined today by the commander of the 906th Air Refueling Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Kurt Wampole. I guess you're our sister unit. How does this work?
So we're actually part of the Total Force Association, so active duty squadron, but we are embedded here in the 126 Air Refueling Wing, so part of the TFI squadron here in the 126.
That sounds like a very fancy name. First, we'll talk about what I know it's in the title, Air Refueling Squadron, but I'm kind of confused because you guys don't have planes. So what does the 906th Air Refueling Squadron do, sir?
Yeah, so great question. Get that a lot, actually. And the easy answer is we do the exact same thing as our Guard counterparts. So we're in the same building as the 108th Air Refueling Squadron. We've got 6 crews, so we got 12 pilots and about 8 boom operators right now, and then about 85 maintainers as well. And our job is to fly and operate the KC-135 just like the rest of our brothers and sisters in the 126. So doing the same kind of thing, just active duty embedded in the Guard wing.
You probably touched on this a little bit, but what is the squadron's role with the 126th? So you guys fly missions.
We do. Yep.
Oh, so what is your how does that work with the 906 and the 126?
Yep. So we are fully integrated with the 126. So both on the ops and the maintenance and the LRS sides, you'll see us working day to day, side by side with our Guard counterparts. So for instance, all of our crews are completely integrated. So it's not like there's Guard crews and there's active duty crews for the most part. We all fly together. So you'll have for example, you could very easily have an AGR pilot, an active duty co-pilot, and a traditional boom operator all on the same crew. Doesn't matter. We we operate completely integrated like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What's that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same thing on the maintenance side. So if you walk through the maintenance building today, you'll see active duty maintainers in there. Honestly, you won't be able to tell the difference. Looking the same job, same airplanes. Everyone's in there working together, one big happy family.
What's this Total Force that you were talking? Total Force Association.
Yep.
Is this something new? Can you explain that with how this works with the National Guard and all that?
Yeah, you bet. So it really started taking hold after the Vietnam War. Basically, there just weren't enough resources to go around, and as the years have progressed, that problem has gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. Right now, in the air refueling enterprise, in particular, there's a lot more demand out there than there are assets. So. Really started to gain traction, I would say, maybe 15, 20 years ago when the Air Force holistically started looking down on how can we get a little more utilization out of the assets we do have. And they figured out one of the ways to do that was to embed active duty airmen in some of the Guard wings. So for the assets that are there, they're getting used pretty much round the clock by members of both services. It's just taking better advantage of the resources that were already in place, if that makes sense.
Right. So when there's a mission that comes around, how do you guys fill that mission? A refueling mission is how does that work with 126? Do you guys compare notes, schedules to figure that out, or how does that work?
Well, so again, for local training missions and that kind of stuff, we are completely integrated. So there is no difference. There's no 906 scheduling and 108 scheduling. 108 being the Guard Air Refueling Squadron.
Sure. It's
completely integrated. All the folks are working there together, and the crews are scheduled together. There are some nuances when it comes to deployments and AMC specific taskings, and then we kind of go through those on a case by case basis and just schedule the folks as it makes sense. But again, overall, 90% of the time we're flying completely operated, and you can't tell the difference between the two.
How does the 126th help the 906th Airmen in the full-time Air Force in their career?
Well, I would say the easy answer to that is the experience, right? So anyone that's worked with the 906 knows that, we're only here for usually, individually probably 2, 3, maybe 4 years before we're moving on or going to a different job or working somewhere else, where obviously on the guard side, that's not the case. A lot of, our guard brethren, both on the operations, maintenance, LRS, all those different sides, you guys are here for a long time. You don't usually go anywhere. So you have that level of experience that, quite frankly, you don't see on the active duty side. So it's very advantageous, especially for our younger folks, to leverage that experience and that knowledge and take advantage of that. Because, again, other than being in a TFI unit like this, you just don't get that.
It just seems like there's a camaraderie there. Do you see like a big camaraderie growing between the full-time guys and our air guys?
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
Guard guys?
And again, daily we operate completely integrated. And I've seen, even on the weekends and stuff, when we do squadron barbecues, that stuff, a lot of times we do things all together, right? Usually stuff that's done at the squadron level might be done at the group level for just that reason. So you get everybody in there together. And yeah, you see active duty guard guys hanging out together all the time. It's just it's part of the way we operate.
Yeah, we had an exercise over the weekend, and we had an exercise, and somebody was saying, well, where's so-and-so at? And they're like, oh, yeah, he's 906. He's not here.
Right. Yep. So in the drill schedule, that's definitely one of the kind of the unique things, right? Most active duty units don't have drill. Well, no reason to. Being integrated in this unit, the 906, we do participate in drills to an extent. We had some folks here this weekend participating in the exercise. As a rule, we're not here full-time like our guard folks over the weekend. But same time, if there's stuff that we need to do or training we need to get done or stuff we need to work together to get done, we're here all the time. In fact, this past exercise, we had 2 crews playing. One was from the guard side, one was active duty, and everyone getting the same training together.
Oh, that's awesome. You guys have just come back from the red flag exercise, correct?
We just had a crew and a whole bunch of maintainers down there as well, and man, those guys did a great job. I've got nothing but great feedback from leadership at all levels on their performance.
So do they take one of our planes, 126 planes out there?
Absolutely, because as you said earlier, the 906 doesn't own any of the planes or equipment. So in that case, absolutely, we were fortunate enough to borrow a plane.
So is it like asking your dad for the car keys sometimes? Yeah,
it can certainly be that way. So per our agreement with AMC, the 906 is on the hook at all times to provide 1 jet and 2 crews, and then whatever associated maintenance goes with that, whether that be for a deployment tasking or a TACC tasking, moving fighters across the ocean, that kind of stuff. So we have that contract that the 126 enables us to meet. Anything on top of that is, pretty much, hey, what's the 126 doing? Do we have the white space on the calendar where we can get an extra airplane if we want to send a crew somewhere else? And I'll tell you, historically, the 126 has been great. They've been more than accommodating for that kind of stuff, realizing how beneficial it is for our crews and for the guard guys when they get to go with us. And they've been very, very helpful. So we appreciate that relationship we've built up.
What have been some of the, you mentioned it, but it doesn't sound like there's many challenges, but there's got to be some challenges between the full-time and the Air National Guard.
Yeah, there sure are. So a couple things with that. The first one is we're kind of unique in that, so by law, all of the TFI squadrons active duty have to be administratively owned and controlled by an active duty wing. For the most part. So like for example, there's a TFI unit down at March in California that's assigned up to Fairchild administratively. Same thing, there's one at Birmingham that's assigned administratively down to MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. We are unique in that we are the only TFI squadron that is co-located with both our wings. So good thing and a bad thing, right?
Thank goodness, I guess.
Yeah. The good part of that is, when one of our guys is having problems with his paycheck or career stuff, he can go across the base to 375th and get that taken care of versus having to work with somebody at a different base that probably doesn't know who he is. The downside is, in many ways, we've got 2 different wings that we work for on the same base. And as you can imagine, sometimes those wings' priorities don't quite line up, or direction from the 126 will be one thing, and then 375th will be something slightly different. So then it's up to our leadership team there in the 906 to figure out, okay, in this situation, who exactly are we working for? Who do we fall under? And sometimes it's both, sometimes it's neither. So it's there's definitely some challenges presented by that. But really, at the end of the day, it's all about relationship building. And again, right now, the partnership between the 126th and the 375th is stronger than I've ever seen it, which makes our job easy.
Yeah, and go back to that, just talking about you don't know who is 906 or 126. You're just like, yeah.
Yeah, day to day, you can't tell.
Yeah, you just walk up to them and you're like, oh yeah, I'm 906. I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, I need to talk to somebody else.
That sounds about right.
But yeah, you really, and they do seem to get along, especially over in maintenance. It's
Yep.
It's a great association.
Yeah, it really seems to work really well. And again, I think a lot of that is just based on the individuals in the association on both sides, right? I always tell everybody, just be a good dude. Just try to get along with people. Realize there's different ways to do business, and
Right.
Your way doesn't have to be the only way. So, and overall, again, I think right now we're in a good spot as far as that goes.
You mentioned I didn't know they were in the LRS. What do they do over in the LRS?
Yeah, we got some folks over there as well that do again same thing you'd see on the guard side. They're fully embedded in the MSG and the LRS there. They deploy with active duty, but everything else as far as taskings and day-to-day ops, if those guys are out there working without their patches or their blouses on, you can't tell. You have no idea. So the exact same thing.
That's awesome. What have you learned about being a commander of a total force associated unit?
Boy, that's I've learned a lot. It's definitely been a very steep learning curve since I got to this unit.
Has it been different than maybe what you would have expected to be a full-time Air Force?
Yeah, in a couple different ways. One of which is our squadron's pretty unique in that since we are embedded in the Guard unit, they take all of the active duty airmen and put them into our squadron. So for instance, a normal Air Refueling Squadron in an active duty unit would just be pilots, maintainers, maybe a few like SARM and crew comm, just kind of very operations focused. That's not the way the 906 is built because it is in the Guard unit. They take basically all of the active duty components here in the 126 and put them all in our squadron. So we have crews, like I mentioned earlier, we have maintainers, we have guys over in LRS, we have crew comm, AFE, intel, just all these different active duty functions that would normally be spread across a wing. They're in our squadron. So we've got 32 different Air Force specialty codes in the 906 alone. So, as a knuckle dragon pilot, taking over a squadron like that has been quite the learning curve, learning how do I develop a maintenance officer? How do I learn to speak intel and how they deploy and how they operate? Because it's not something I grew up learning about. So it's been really eye-opening getting to see the way that other career fields outside my own operate, let alone getting the opportunity to be in charge.
Right. So what's it been like for you as a pilot to be on one of the 126th planes?
It's been great. I've certainly enjoyed every minute of being here in the 126. From a pilot perspective, it's been awesome because, again, like I was talking about, that experience earlier that a lot of the 126 and the 108 pilots bring to the table, you just don't get that on the active duty side. These guys have been flying these airplanes for a long time, and I've learned a heck of a lot about just airmanship in general from being around them. The other part of that is our maintenance guys do a great job taking care of these airplanes. These airplanes are nicer than anything I've seen on the active duty side, and it's just a joy to fly them. They do a great job getting us up there.
Is it something that you've, because I was in the Army and all that back in the early 90s, and you always heard that the National Guard had all the worst stuff. They were just, they just got hand-me-downs and stuff like that. Was it a surprise to you when you got here to be like, whoa?
It was a little bit of a surprise, but the more I dig into it, it makes sense. And the reason I say that is just the pride that the maintainers, everybody involved in the operation here at the 126 is just so proud of what they do, the airplanes themselves, and supporting that mission. The results speak for themselves, and it's been just the more I'm here, the more I'm learning that's across the entire wing, just that pride, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah. Is the squadron involved in the LRE?
Yeah, you better believe it. So again, this past weekend, as we're starting to do these exercises, building up to the LRE, yes, we've been involved and we'll continue to be so. Obviously, the exact requirements just still kind of being defined, right? But I know we're going to have at least one crew and then a handful of associated support personnel plan as well to include our maintainers. So yeah, we're definitely going to have a big footprint in this exercise.
You are the commander. We're here with Kurt Wampole, Lieutenant Colonel Kurt Wampole, the commander of the 906th Air Refueling Squadron. Sir, we've had a hell of a last year.
Oh, man.
What's that been like for you? Has it been different from, obviously it's been different, but you probably have fellow lieutenant colonels maybe that are commanders of squadrons or wings or what have you, or squadrons. How has that been? What's the challenge been like that, and how have you talk to other lieutenant colonels, squadron commanders.
Right. Yeah. So I would say the biggest challenge we faced over the last year, and you're exactly right. It's been a heck of a year. So there's been just some things coming up that we never thought we'd have to deal with, and yet here we go finding our way through them. I would say the biggest challenge is, again, so we operated fully integrated, like I've been talking about this whole time. Unfortunately, when it comes to guidance as far as like COVID procedures and medical and everything, active duty guidance is sometimes substantially different than from what is issued from the state through NBG or the tag and everything like that. So just kind of navigating through that, it's almost on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I'll give you just it's a hypothetical example, but it's something we deal with on a day-to-day basis. In one of our shops, like I said, we could have a couple active duty guys, a couple DSGs, and a couple of AGRs all working side by side. Somebody tests positive for COVID. What do we do? And every single person in that shop might have a different procedure to follow just based on their status. So that's one of the challenges presented by working as integrated as we do, is figuring out where exactly we fall and what procedures to follow, because they could be different.
That brings up a good question about when we have to go do state duty. How does that affect your operations?
Yeah, so that's one thing, unfortunately, that we are not usually able to help out with. State taskings are very specifically for our guard brother and sisters. So we help when we can. Obviously, sometimes there are exceptions, like on a bunch of these airlift flights we've done to the Capitol, moving the Army National Guard troops around. Just based on the way it was coded and tasked, we were able to help with some of that kind of stuff, which was great. Not usually the case. And when we're not able to help, usually we're the ones that stay behind and try to keep the lights on, keep the ship afloat while the guard guys are out doing the state missions.
Does that put more pressure, more stress on your airmen when we're off doing COVID duty and civil unrest and all the others?
Yeah, it certainly can. No doubt about that. So we just kind of, again, try to work together and get through it as a team as much as we can.
What made you want to join the Air Force?
Honestly, I always wanted to fly airplanes. I'll tell you, I was probably 5 or 6 years old, grew up in Southern California and went to an air show and saw the Thunderbirds flying around. I was like,
nice.
You know what? That's what I want to do one day. Obviously didn't quite pan out that way, but still inspired me to join the Air Force, and I've never looked back.
Did you go straight into, did you go to the academy or ROTC?
I did. I went to the academy straight out of high school.
Wow.
About 3 or 4 weeks after high school graduation, I actually started at the academy, and it's been off to the races since then.
What's that like going from high school to Air Force Academy?
So certainly a challenge, yeah, as you can imagine. But it was great, though. I'll tell you what, it's very structured, as you can imagine, and I think I needed that. It was, you hear a lot of guys that are on the 4, the 6, the 8-year plan, not an option at the academy, right? And that's probably a good thing for me. I think it kind of helped motivate me to get through that.
What's been the highlights of your past assignments?
Man, I have just had a great career. I have zero complaints about where I've been and what I've got to do. So I started off training with the Navy. Actually, went through pilot training with flying the T-34 down to Pensacola. So just being in that environment right off the bat, learning how a different service gets to do something after 4 years at the academy was great. Again, kind of opened my eyes to, man, there's more than one ways to get things done, which was great, and that's really set me up well for where I am today. After that, flew the KC-135 for 3 years up at Fairchild, Washington. So getting to see the AMC machine, how that works, the high deployment tempo, and just the grind of being at a big tanker wing really gave me the appreciation of how AMC operates. Following that, got to go over to Mildenhall for 3 years, continuing to fly the 135, which was great. So again, getting to work with some of our international partners and seeing, the way the U.S. Air Force does business is one way, but then how do the Italians do it? How do the French? How do the British, et cetera? And again, very eye-opening, helped me develop that broader perspective. After that, shifted gears a little bit, went and flew C-130s out at Little Rock. Got to do that for 3 years, which was a lot of fun. Really neat airplane, great airplane to fly.
So when you I didn't realize this. So you can fly different. Is that something that you learn in the academy to learn different frames or airframes, or you?
Nope. So you actually got to go to. Usually it's about 4 to 5 months of training to fly each one.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yep. But the Air Force does that deliberately. They try to either move you to a different AMC aircraft, another large aircraft, or there's other opportunities to go fly like pilot training aircraft, for example,
Okay.
or even to go to Altus and fly, the 135 schoolhouse. Lots of different opportunities just to do something outside of the norm of doing your day-to-day, your mission.
What was your experience flying the C-130?
It was great. The crew complement was a little bit different. A few more folks. Obviously, we had a crew. Our basic crew is a crew of 5, if not 6, and a much older airplane. Very capable of doing its mission, but very differently structured than the 135. So, just a blast to fly. But was definitely happy to get back to my roots in the 135 here in the 126th.
The C-130. What's it just seems like I've flown that from Germany to Northern Ireland. That's a long flight. I mean,
it's
that's
a long flight. It's not designed for passenger comfort, and I'll tell you that much right now. But it's really good at doing what it's designed to do, which is landed on short dirt airstrips and doing the airdrop and some of the, the very tactical portion of that airlift as it was designed. It's really, really good at it.
And then you came back here. So you just came from Arkansas to here to Scott Air Force Base.
One more stop between Arkansas and Scott. I went down to Montgomery. I went to Maxwell for a year for school for ACSC. So I was happy to get out of Alabama, as you can imagine, and come back up here to Scott. It's interesting. I actually got here to Scott. I only expected to be here probably about 2 years. I got here for staff, up on AMC staff, and again, that 2-year assignment was 5 years ago, and here I still am. So,
holy cow! How long have you been commander of 906?
About a year and a half now. Change of command is coming up this summer, looking like the end of June.
Oh, wow! Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
Where are you moving on to?
Wish I had a good answer to that. I don't know yet. There's a couple different options still on the table, so we'll see what the Air Force decides to do with me.
What are you hoping for?
I'd like to stay here at Scott in some capacity. Again, my 2-year assignment, right? It could end up stretching into 10 or 15, which I think is really common, by the way. It seems like a lot of guys do that. But lots of different job options here at Scott, whether that's in the 126th here itself or moving on to TACC, AMC staff. Again, there's just so many different cats and dogs across this space. I'm sure they'll find somewhere to stick me. There's a toilet somewhere that needs to be scrubbed.
So, how much longer do you have in the Air Force then?
So I can retire in March of 24. So we're getting close.
If somebody wanted to join and go into the academy, what would you say to them? Give them advice.
So I would say that sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but they really want you to succeed there. So really just keep trying, keep a good attitude, and keep plugging away at it. Sometimes it feels like the world's stacked against you, but they're not. They're just trying to train you and develop you for the success in a future Air Force career. I would say the biggest thing I'd suggest to folks is have a good time management program, whatever that looks like. Whatever tools you use, just make sure you know how to budget your time and prioritize things, because intentionally they're going to give you too much. You're not going to have enough time in the day to get everything done. So you got to figure out, 1, how to manage your time, and 2, how to prioritize, because some things, frankly, aren't that important.
How do you go from high school to the academy? What did you do to make that, to get there?
So it's a pretty lengthy application process, and you have to get endorsed by either like a senator or a congressman. So it's about a 6 to 8 month long process. Takes quite a while, but really what they're looking for is somebody that's been successful in high school. I mean, you got to have pretty good grades, and you have to have decent SAT scores. They have kind of minimums published for that kind of stuff, but they're looking more so than that. They're looking for somebody that's well-rounded, right? So somebody that either played sports or was involved in scouts. It doesn't really matter what you did, as long as it was something, as long as you're showing that well-roundedness and that you're doing multiple different things. And if there's leadership involved, so much the better.
Did the academy have a good football team while you were there?
They were okay. There was, I think, 1 year they did pretty well. The rest, they were mediocre at best.
Did they beat the Army at least?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't hard to beat the Army.
I have to say that's going back quite a ways, but those are always fun games to go to, just because all that pageantry is great to see.
Well, so you are from Southern California, where at?
Born and raised. Yeah, if you know where March Air Reserve Base is, right down the road from there, about 50 miles or so east of Los Angeles.
Oh, near Riverside.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That is where that's like our Western headquarters for American Forces Network is.
Okay, perfect.
We ran most of our TV and stuff out of March Air Force Base.
Yep. So yeah, I grew up right down the road from there. So very familiar with, and I loved watching the airplanes fly there. That's why, I was talking about that air show earlier. That's where we were. Went to March and watched the Thunderbirds fly around.
So your dad was in the military? Or
he was not, actually, nope. Law enforcement, and
just happened to live there.
Just happened to live there, yeah. That's exactly right.
So you took this command as the 906. Is that something that you volunteer for, or is that something you kind of have to apply for as a commander?
A little bit of both. So, and I go back to when I got here to Scott, I did not think this was in the cards. It was not something I was planning for. I was literally sitting there after, about 2 years into my staff job, and got a phone call out of the blue. Hey, how would you like to come over to the 906 and be our director of operations? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Where do I sign? So moved across the ramp. It was a great opportunity for me and my family. Of course, the kids are settled into school and sports and scouts and all that kind of stuff, and my wife works as well. So it was a good move for us as a family to stay here. We do love the area. You know, the whole Scott Air Force Base area is great for families, so we were excited to stay here. And then after a year as the DO, was blessed enough to be picked up for command of the unit, and it's been absolutely fantastic.
What's that like to go from a staff job to, is that a different mindset? You got to go from a staff job to being the commander of so many airmen.
Very much so, yeah. It was definitely a shift in perspective and mentality, but I missed it. You know, the whole time I was on staff, I missed being in the airplane and doing the mission and the operations. I enjoyed my time up on staff. I learned quite a bit, but I was happy to get back to the operation, to be sure.
How often do you get to fly now?
I try to fly about once a week, which, I mean, I think every pilot will tell you, hey, I never get to fly enough, but that's actually been pretty good. And in comparison to a lot of my active duty counterparts, it's pretty good, so I can't complain.
Anything else you want to add?
No, just again, just to reemphasize, we've really enjoyed our time here. The relationship between the 906, the 126, 375th, everybody's working together really well, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be here and all the support we've been given.
All right, thank you very much. That's Lieutenant Colonel Kurt Wampole, the commander of our sister unit. Is that what we call you?
Yeah, our TFR squadron. You
bet.
Yeah,
he's the commander of the 906th Air Refueling Squadron. Again, sir, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Brian, for having me. I really enjoyed it.
With your look around the Air Force, I'm Staff Sergeant Angelo Rosadio. Acting Secretary of the Air Force John Roth emphasized his priorities at the Air Force Association's virtual Aerospace Warfare Symposium.
And so I view my role here is to ensure we as the Air Force, that we continue the momentum that we have built up on both the air and the space side. We can't afford to take a pause.
His priorities align with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's, focusing on modernization, defeating coronavirus, and making work environments free of discrimination, hate, and harassment. Also during the symposium, Air Force Chief of Staff General C.Q. Brown discussed his strategic approach for the future. Last year, Brown introduced his strategic approach for success called Accelerate, Change, or Lose, explaining what must be done to ensure air superiority and how to defend the U.S. and its interests through future challenges.
We are changing a bit of the culture of the Air Force about how we approach some of these. And a cultural change takes a bit of time, and you'll have some naysayers, some friction points. But I've got to be, as I've always said, be persistent and consistent on the focus I have.
Brown says COVID will change how the Air Force works through some things, but must remain focused on new ways to complete the mission. After tests and feedback from airmen around the world, the Air Force Uniform Office has finalized the new Physical Training, or PT uniform. It's the first change to the uniform in 16 years, and will improve performance with a design that works for a variety of athletic interests. The new PT uniform will be available in 2022. A big uniform change will happen a lot sooner for some maintainers. Starting March 15th, commanders can authorize dark navy blue shorts when temperatures reach 80 degrees or more on the flight line, hangars, or dock areas that aren't climate controlled. And that's your look around the Air Force.
Oh, that's going to be a great look for the maintainers. The Coyote Brown t-shirt, uniform green or Coyote Brown socks with uniform boots, but I'm sure it's welcome. Any relief from the heat when they're out there on the ramp is I'm sure, a welcome sight for them. Additionally, airmen and guardians in all specialties will be authorized to wear their functional communities-approved duty identifier patches. If you are having thoughts of suicide or know someone in crisis, the military crisis line, 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Press 1. That'll hook you up to a military person, representative. There is a chat lifeline. Also, you can chat through their website, suicidepreventionlifeline.org. That's suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Another way to get help in the crisis text line is to text the word HELP, H-E-L-P, to 838-255. The crisis text line, HELP, H-E-L-P, to 838-255. You can find all of our links on Linktree. That's linktr.ee/126. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, don't forget you can also download this on your favorite podcast. If you want to pass along some information, you can email roll call at 126.arw.pa.mm at us.af.mil. Thanks for listening to Roll Call, a 126th Air Refueling Wing podcast focused on people, mission, and community. I'm Tech Sergeant Brian Ellison.